Hi, this is Pavel with a Java exercise from the book Java Software Solutions, Chapter 5, Exercise 7. We're going to be creating the classic rock, paper, scissors. We are going to design and implement an app that plays the game against the computer, and obviously the program should randomly choose one of the three options, rock, paper, or scissors, and then prompt the user for the selection. At that point, the program reveals both choices. It basically will say the user got let's say rock, the computer got, let's say, paper. The paper beats rock, computer wins. So we simply will display a message saying who won, and we will continue to play until the user chooses to stop. In other words, we will have to have a kind of like a game loop until the user inputs certain gives an OK to quit. We will be playing, and at the end we will display kind of statistics of wins, losses, and ties. All right, so first thing, I'm going to create a class, and I'll call this one game items. And this class will have nothing more than some enumerations for the rock, paper, and scissors, and for the result of the game, which is obviously to win, lose, or tie. So it's going to be a public enumeration. I'll call it choices, and it's going to contain rock, paper, and scissors. All right, so that's one. And the second one will be public enumerations, and it's going to be, I call it result, and it's going to be win, lose, or tie. So this I'm just doing in a separate class because we will have a class for a computer and for the player, and they both need access to these because they both will choose, rock, paper, and scissors, and they both will need to know whether it was who won. So this is going to be our game items class, and yeah, that's all. They will have no other functionality. Okay, so next one, let's create a computer that's gonna be a little shorter than the player, because computer will randomly pick a number. So I'll just call it class computer. Okay, and now this class extends or inherits from the game items. So now we have access to the enumerations. Now, since this is the computer is going to randomly choose a number, we will import java.util.random, and now the computer can randomly pick a number, and we will create a variable for that, for the object. I'll just call it rand. Okay, now in our constructor we will simply initialize the random and create an object of random. Since this is inheriting from game items, we will have to call the constructor for that class. And now we do the random equals new random. So now we have our object created, and now we are ready to use it. So how does the computer chooses the number? Well, there are three choices: rock, paper, scissors. So we will create a function that returns one of the choices. It will return the rock, paper, or scissors. So it will return choices. Remember, that's our enumerations called choices. And I'll call the function get choice. Now, for the computer to get the choice, we need the random number. So I will do a choice, an integer, and it will choose from number 1, 2, or 3, which will represent rock, paper, or scissors. So in order to do that, we will simply do random.next integer of 3. So now our, oops, too many brackets. Okay, so now our choice will hold a value 1, 2, or 3. And now we will assign that value. We will decide what that value actually means. What does 1 mean? Well, 1 means rock. Let's say 2 means paper, and 3 would mean scissors. So we can do a switch statement of the choice. So we will simply evaluate if it's 1, 2, or 3. And in our case 1, in case it is number 1, we will simply return choices.rock. 1 represents rock. Now case 2, we will return choices.paper. Integer 2 will represent paper. And if it's neither of these, then obviously it's a scissors. So this is basically kind of case 3, but I don't want to do it that way because we still need the return. We have to return something at the end of the function. So I will simply return choices dot scissors. So again, if the random number is 1, it will return rock. Remember, when it returns something, then all the rest of the code is not being executed at all. So if it's not 1, it checks if it's 2. If it is, it returns paper. Again, this is not executed. But if it's neither 1 or 2, then obviously it's 3. Then it will simply return the scissors. And that's really all for the computer class. So next one, let's do our player class. So our player. Now player will have an input through the console. So we need to import our java.util scanner to be able to enter, a value that the user wants. Now scanner, so I'll create a variable scan that will hold the object of scanner. And yeah, I don't think we need any other. Let's do the constructor, our public player, and the constructor, once again, it will call the super class, and we will instantiate the scanner object. So scan equals new scanner of the system.input. And that's all our constructor. We don't need to instantiate anything else directly. Now, just like with the computer, we need to now give the user an option to, to make a selection, make a choice, rock, paper, or scissors. So we will do the same like we did with the computer. We will have a function that will return rock, paper, or scissors. I'll call it the same. So it's gonna be get choice. And over here, we will simply first output or instruct the user to output or enter rock, paper, or scissors. So we will do print line and something like please enter your choice. And let's say R equals rock, P equals paper, and S equals scissors. Okay, so we are instructing the user to enter, a value, and we will capture that in a variable of character. I'll call it player choice, and that will equal if let's say if user enters rock, the whole word rock, we only want the first letter. If user only enters the first letter, then we're good. We still can just use that. So what we are going to do, we're going to scan the next line for the whole line, but we only are going to get the character, only the first character, which is the element 0. Again, so if user enters rock, that's fine. We will only get the letter R, and we know that it means rock. So, and we can actually do to uppercase as well. That way we don't have to check whether it is lowercase r or an uppercase r. We simply convert it to uppercase right here, and we can now only check for the capital R or capital P and capital C. Okay, so we have that, and again, just like with we did with the computer class, we are going to do a switch statement of the player choice this time. Basically, we are going to see what the user entered, what letter the user entered. So if the case is R, then we will return choices.rock. If the case is P, then we will return paper, choices.paper. And finally, if the case is S, then we will return choices.scissors. And I forgot the, like that. Okay, so now we have evaluated the input. Again, we capitalize it right here, so the player choice already holds a capital letter or capital character. So we don't have to you know check against lowercase r or lowercase p. And by the way, we don't need to use a break over here because, like I said before, once the return is encountered, everything after that is simply being ignored. It's not being executed. Okay, so now what happens if it's not R, P, or S? Well, we prompt the user to enter it again, because obviously that was the wrong input. So if neither of the above, then it is then it is an invalid input. Okay, so in case we will simply state that it's an invalid input. Print line, and we will say invalid input. And then what? Well, we want to go back to this function, to this method, and start again. So basically what we will do, we will call the get choice again. Get choice. So this way, if the input is not R, P, or S, this is the system prints out invalid input, and we are going back to the get choice method, and we're going from the beginning of that method again, and simply output please enter your choice, and it keeps going until one of these is true, because once one of these is true, it returns the proper choice, proper rock, paper, or scissors. Okay, I think this might be all for the player. So now we need some kind of like a game class, something that will hold the actual evaluation of or comparison of the input from the player and the random choice of the computer. So I will create a class called game, and this one you know what, I forgot, go back to our player, class player. I forgot that it must oh, it imported the I was going to inherit from there, but okay. And you know what, let me do that just like I did with the computer class. Extend game items. So like that, sorry about that. So I don't need to import. Okay, so now you could do it either way. You could import the game items, but just for the fun of it, I like to extend the class for now, just so I see, it's a good practice for the object orientation. So my computer extends the game items, so it has access to both of these enumerations, and so does my player. And game will have the same thing, so it will extends game items. Alright, so Now what do we need? We need the object of player, and we need the object of the computer. So I will do private player, and the variable will be called player, and private computer class with a lowercase computer. We also need to determine what the computer's choice was and what the player's choice was. So I will do private choices, player choice, and private choices, computer choice. Alright, so and of course, remember in our game items we have the results, whether it's win, lose, or tie, so we need one of those too. So private result, and it will be a result. Okay, now our constructor, public game, once again we'll call the superclass, and it will instantiate the object of player and the computer. So our player equals new player, and our computer equals new computer. Alright, so now I'm going to create like a main class, basically, that will run the whole game. So it will be a public void play. Okay, so now what we need in order to play, we need the player to make a choice and the computer to make a choice. So I will do player choice, and I will call the get, if I remember what I called it, get choice. Okay, so player choice equals player dot get choice. So this will assign, it will run the it will run this code. It will prompt the user to enter rock, paper, or scissors. It evaluates what the user enters and returns back one of the choices, rock, paper, or scissors. So now our player choice will hold rock, paper, or scissors. The same with the computer. So our computer choice equals computer object or class get choice. So now we have the player made a choice, the computer randomly made a choice. So now we can compare them. So we will go to our result, and you know what, we need before I do that, we need a method that will actually get us the result. So it will be public, and it will return the result, get results. Alright, so now how do we get the results? Well, it's basically if if the player choice equals the computer choice, in other words, if both made the same selection, or rock, paper, or scissors, then it's a tie. So we will return result dot tie. But if it's not a tie, then one, be the player or the computer, won. So we will do a switch statement and evaluate one of the choices. So let's say we will evaluate the player choice. We'll do it from the player's perspective. So what the player's choice is. So if it is rock, if the player chose rock, then we can ask ourselves, what did the computer choose? If the computer, we don't have to ask if the computer chose rock. Remember, it's already taken care of here. If the computer choice is the same as player choice, we'll return tie, and nothing else is run from this code. But if it's not a tie, then clearly, if player has a rock, the only two options, the only option for the computer would be scissors or papers. So if the case is rock, we can go return and do one of these inline if statements. So if computer choice equals choices that scissors, in other words, if computer chose scissors and the user chose rock, then we can return that the player won. So we will result dot win. So the player wins. No, not die, win. However, if the computer didn't choose scissors, then the only option is paper, and in that case, the computer won because paper beats rock. So if we will return result dot lost or lose. All right, so the same for the other two cases. So if the user or the player takes or chooses paper, we will do the same thing. If the computer chooses paper beats rock, so if the computer chooses rock, then we can return the result of win because the player won. However, if the computer did not choose rock, then the only option is that it chose scissors. Then we return lose, the player lost. And finally, if the case is scissors, then again we'll evaluate what the computer chose. So if the computer chose paper, then the player won. If the computer chose scissors, if the computer chose rock, then the player lost. Again, the tie is first evaluated. We have to evaluate it first, otherwise there would be a third option here. We would still have to evaluate whether, the computer chose scissors as well. But we take care of that first, and then the only options is whether the player won or the computer won. Okay, so since this is returning a value, we have to return something at the end. I will simply return result dot lose, but it will actually never come to this because all the options will be evaluated. One of these has to be true. It will never come to this one, so it will never come to this line. Okay, so now we have our results, so we can come back over here to our play method and call that now and assign the result to our variable result. All right, so our result will equal whatever is returned from the get results method. Okay, so now we have the result. Now what we have to do is simply display the results. So I'll create, let me do it over here so you can see it on one page, the whole code. So private, this one will be private simply because we are going to call it. In fact, this one can be private as well. We are not going to be accessing this from outside outside of this function or of this method. Okay, so we got a private, and I'll just call it I don't know, display results. And what we're gonna display depends on what is being returned over here. So we are going to evaluate the result, who won. So we are a variable result, and similar to this structure, it's going to be a switch statement, and if the case is win, then we will simply output system.println system.out.println, and something like player choice. In other words, it will say, let's say player chooses rock, so it will output the rock, and we will concatenate it, beats, and whatever is the computer choice. So rock beats. So in this case, obviously, that would be scissors. So rock beats scissors, and we will simply do player wins. Okay, so that's all. Again, if the case is win, that means the player won. So we output, whatever the player chose beats whatever the computer chose, player wins. Now, if the case is lose, then I'll just copy paste this. Then the player lost. So player choice loses to computer choice, and we will do computer wins. And finally, if it's a tie, we will output player choice, I don't know, maybe like equals to, the computer choice, and I will do it's a draw, or it's a tie, since we are calling tie. Okay, so yeah, that's all how we display the results. Oh, this is a void, we don't return anything. So it will simply output the results, and that's really all. That the game would be over. But remember, we keep playing until the user decides to, and at the end we also output like final stats, like statistics, how many games were played and how many were lost or won. So we can do that. I will simply create another function down here, and I'll call it private. It's gonna be a void again, stats, and it will collect the stats. If the player wins, we will add 1 to our winning. If the player loses, we will add 1 to our losses. And if it's a tie, we'll add 1 to our tie. So I need 3 more variables. Private wins. It's going to be private integer wins, private integer lose, and private integer ties. Okay, so how do we display the stats? Well, once again, switch statement, and we will evaluate the actually no, let's not. Let's do a regular if statement, because if the result equals result dot win, in other words, if player won, we will add wins plus plus. We will add 1 to our wins. Else if result equals result dot lose, then we will add 1 to our losses. So our loss. Do I have? What do I name it? I forgot. Lose. Oh, you know what? Wait, let's make it losses. Losses plus plus. And finally, if it's neither win or lose, then it's a tie. Ties plus plus. So from a play, after we get the results, we can get the stats. For example, over here we can do stats. Just simply call the method. But you know what? Before that, I need to actually display these results. Who won? Player won. Like rock beats scissors, for example. So we need to, before we display the stats, because the stats are only displayed at the end, and this is just a collecting, like the stats. In fact, private static, we can do this as a statics, because they will be changed for every with every run of the game. So before we calculate the stats, we can simply do display results. We will call the function or the method display results. So the whole thing that's going on here is, for now, the player makes choice, the computer makes choice, then we evaluate those choices and determine who won. Then we will, display the message who won, and then at the end we will also collect the stats, the statistics. Alright, so we also need one more function or one more method. I'll just do it right here, and it's going to be a public because this one will be called from the main method, and I'll call it VoidDisplayStats. This one will be called at the very end. When the game ends, it will display whatever the statistics were collected. So it will simply do system.out.println, and it will say you have played how many games. Well, the number of games being played is the winning games plus the losing game plus the ties. That's the number of games. So I will do wins plus losses plus ties. Okay, so after that we can display how many times the player won. So print line, you have won, and how many times that is being stored in the wins variable. Times. And then we will do how many times player lost. Print line, you have lost, and it's stored in the losses variable. And finally we can do the ties. So system.out.println, the tie happened, and it will be stored in ties times. And on a new line we can just say something like good bye, because the game ends at this point. Alright, so that's our game, and now we have to test it. So we create a final class, and this one I'll call PlayGame, and this one will also have the main method. So alright, for over here what we'll need, we'll need a scanner, because the user will enter whether they want to keep playing or not. So after each round we will ask the user whether he wants to play. So it will be java.util.scanner, and we can create the object right here, scan equals new scanner system.in. Alright, and we can create all we need to create is the game object. Once we do that, remember, it extends from extends the game items, and it will create the object for the player and computer. So all we need for now is the game object. So our game equals new game. And in order for the user to be able to enter whether they want to quit or not, so we'll catch that in our character, let's say quit, and initialize it to empty for now, space. Alright, so now while the quit does not equal to let's say n, in other words, if the, well, or yes, we'll see. I don't know if it's gonna be y, or it depends on how we structure the question. Alright, so, but while the user doesn't want to quit, we will play the game. So we will create game and play, and everything is taken care of from this method. So it will just keep playing, and it will check the input and everything right there. So, but after each round we will simply do system.out.println and ask the user if he wants to play again. So play again, press, I don't know, any key to continue, or N, there you go, to quit. So basically now, until the user presses N, we will be playing the game. So we need to capture the input into our scan. So it's gonna be, since we are capturing only a character, like if user enters no, we only need the N. So scan that next line, and we'll convert it to upper just like we did before, and get the one character, uppercase that character at index 0, because that's the first letter of the string. Alright, so you know what, I misspelled this one. It's quit. There you go. And that's all. That's all the game loop. And at the end, we can close the scanner. We don't need it anymore, so we can close it and display the stats. So this is the time when we'll call the display the final stats. So display stats from the game class. All right, so let's see if that works. This is gonna be our Java application. All right. Okay, please enter your choice. I'll enter rock. And it says rock beats scissors. Yeah, player wins. Play again. I'll press any key. I press U, for example. How about I press P for paper? Paper equals to paper. It's a tie. I want to play again. And this time I'll choose scissors. It says scissors equals to scissors. It's a tie again. And let's play again. I'll play scissors again. And it's a tie again. All right. And I'll play scissors one more time. And scissors loses to rock. And computer wins. All right, so let's quit it. It seems to be working fine. You know what? Let me just check one more time. If I want to play again, and I'll enter something not R, P, or S. I'll enter L. So it's an invalid input. And it says invalid input. Please enter your choice: rock, paper, or scissors. So if I enter a number, it says invalid input. So I'll enter rock again, and it says rock loses to paper, computer wins. And I don't want to play anymore, so I press N. And it says the statistics. I have played 6. I should supposed to say 6 times. Or you have played 6 games or whatever, and you have won 1 time, you have lost 2 times, and tie happened 3 times. Goodbye. So all we have to do is really just to adjust those messages a little. There needs to be a space here, and I need to enter the word games after the word play, after the how many games we played. So where's the display stats? You have played plus games, so it will enter the games. And your tide happened, and over here I'll enter a space. So if I run it again and I choose, oops, I need to move my cursor over here. So rock with scissors, player wins. I want to play again. I want to choose rock again. Rock equals rock. It's a tie. I want to play one more time, and I'll choose paper. Paper loses to scissors. So I won one game. I lost 1 game, and there were 2 ties, I think. So I don't want to play again. I played 3 games only. Hold on a second. Rock beats scissors. Player wins. It's a tie, and computer wins. Okay, so I played 3 games. I have won 1, lost 1, and tie was 1 time. So there you have it. This is the whole structure for the game. So again, over here in our game items, we declare our enumerations for the rock, paper, scissors, and for the results, win, lose, or tie. And we will extend this class with all the other classes, so we have access to these instead of importing, using the import method or import way to do this, to have access to that. All right, now we went to our computer class, and we simply created a random number 1 through 1, 2, or 3, and over here we assign, if it's number 1, then we know the computer chose rock. If it's 2, it chose paper. If it's 3, then it chose scissors, and that's all there was to the computer. The player over here, it's a similar system, but except we will collect the input from the user that the user actually enters. The user will manually enter R, P, or S. We will evaluate it. If it's R, it's rock, P is papers, S is scissors. If it's neither, then we'll say that it's invalid input, and we will return back to this function, to this method, and ask the user to re-enter. And in our game, it has all the rules, and so we have all the variables for the object player and object computer, and for the player's choice and computer's choice, and for the result as well. And over here we have the wins, loses, and ties that will hold with each value, which each round they will collect the result of the game, wins, loses, or ties. So we have one main method over here, which is play. It will call for the player to make the choice, rock, paper, scissors. It will do the same for the computer, but obviously computer does it randomly. And then it will get the results. The results are simply either tie. If the computer choice equals to player choice, then it's a tie. If it's not a tie, then one of the either player or the computer won. So we will evaluate the player's choice. If the player chooses rock and the computer chooses scissors, then the player won. Otherwise, the player lost. The same with the paper. Yeah, either player won or a player lost. After we have that, we store the result, win, lose, or tie, in a variable result, and then we call the display the results. So which basically says again, if the case is win, if the player won, output that the player won. If the player lost, output the player lost. And if it's a tie, output that it was a tie. And finally, we will get the statistics, or update the statistics. Again, if it was if player won, we'll add one more win to our wins variable. If player lost, we'll add one to our losses. And if it's a tie, we'll add one to our tie. We also have one more method here, which basically just displays the stats. It will display how many games were played, how many were won, lost, and how many ties. And in our play game, all we do, we have a flag called quit, and until player enters N, which would indicate that he wants to quit, we will play the game, and at the end of each round we will ask the user to enter whether they want to play or not. When they enter N, the loop exits, and we will display the final stats from the game class. Alright, so hope it was helpful, and I'll see you next time. Take care.